shot. I'm not going to have the speech.
Good evening. The meeting will come to order. Roll call, please.
Iannarino.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Khan.
Here.
Smolka.
Here.
Chupai.
Here.
Wong.
Here.
The mission of School District 15 is to produce world-class learners by building a connected learning community. Thanks, everyone, for coming this evening. It's going to be an exciting meeting, like always. Dr. Thompson can lead it off.
This evening, we are going to be led in the pledge by some students that are doing exceptionally well at Plum Grove Junior High, and Dr. Carrie Wilson will introduce those people.
Good evening, Dr. Thompson and Board President Chupai, members of the board. Our students are amazing. They actually look like they're a little nervous right now. I'm not sure why, because we flossed all the way over here, but they are going to introduce themselves. They were chosen to lead our pledge this evening for the board meeting due to the little extra they do every day to make a difference at school, and we're very proud of all of them. And I'll let them introduce themselves.
My name is Gwen Gongola. I'm in 8th grade.
My name is Gwen Hartley. I'm in 8th grade.
My name is Haley Deek, and I'm in 8th grade.
My name is Kanamoto. I'm 7th grade.
My name is Yui Kanamoto. I'm 6th grade.
My name is Nathan Shubai, and I'm in 8th grade.
My name is Thomas Porter. I'm in 7th grade.
My name is Armand Khan, and I'm in 7th grade.
My name is Brian Tayes, and I'm in 8th grade.
My name is Sophia Blasovich, and I'm in 8th grade. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Board of Education has these light-up pens for you to thank you for coming tonight and leading us in the pledge.
It's very serious, very deep voice. Very deep. So cute, huh? Keeps checking you out. They're just not staying, huh?
Yeah. They can take our place.
We can trade. We have 3 board members that have a free evening now, and 3 children that do not.
Bring your kid to work day. You can just sit here and...
Bring your child to board day.
Yeah.
So I think now that we've gotten 4 or 5 board members' kids at the board meeting, we got to get the rest of you to get your children come to the meeting. It's kind of fun to see them here. All right, the first item in my section really is to recognize our PTA and PTASA presidents. They do a tremendous amount of work all year. I'm sure all of you have been a part of PTA in some fashion and seen the work that the presidents do to make a difference for kids. And tonight we have the 2 co-presidents for Northwest Suburban Council, Stephanie Boucher and Betsy Garagozzola. Garagos. Thank you.
Someday, Betsy, we'll all get it right.
Come on up.
I still call her Betsy G, as far as I go.
I typically go by Lisa S. also.
Good evening, President Chupai, Superintendent Thompson, and the members of the Board of Education. My name is Stephanie Boucher, and with Betsy G are the co-presidents of the Northwest Suburban Council PTA and PTSA. We appreciate you giving us this opportunity to address the board tonight as we recognize the presidents of all 20 PTA and PTSA units of District 15. The mission of the PTA is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children, every child, one voice. The Northwest Suburban Council of PTA, PTSAs oversees all 20 District 15 local units and acts as a liaison between our local units and the District 15 administration, Board of Education, National PTA, Illinois PTA, and Northwest Cook Region PTA. Our council has a total of 32 local unit presidents, co-presidents, president-elect officers that lead their individual PTSAs and boards within their schools. PTAs in District 15 work to extend students' learning by providing assemblies, enrichment, and classroom resources. They bring their diverse communities together in family programs and events, provide parent resources and education, cultural art opportunities, and programs that promote safety and healthy living. They do all of this because they care about our children. They want them to reach their highest potential by be confident, healthy, and successful students and future citizens. These presidents have many parents serving on boards with them. The number of hours they dedicate to each of our schools goes well into the thousands. We thank you for taking the time to recognize these dedicated volunteers. I am so happy that some of our presidents were able to juggle their schedules to join us this evening. For those that could not join us, we thank them as well. I would like to ask the PTA, PTSA presidents to please come forward when Betsy calls your name.
All right, from Central Road, we're recognizing Gina Lewis, Frank C. Whiteley, Tracy Bobitz. And from Graham Sanborn, I don't see Renee True or Melanie Santos-Stefano. Hunting Ridge, Laura Barnett. Jane Adams, Jennifer Krieg. Kimball Hill, Katie Rosansky. Lake Louise, Vicki Filipponio. Lincoln, Amy Stochkovich. Marion Jordan, Kelly Lepatina. Pleasant Hill, Valerie Lucas. Stuart Paddock, Maria Tambolini. Thomas Jefferson, Yvonne Matsunaga, and Heather Helmers. Virginia Lake, Amy Westfall. Willow Bend, Carolina Hemersky. Winston Campus, Mary Catherine Ritterbush, she's on her way. Conyers Learning Academy, Sherry Augie and Karen Steffler. There's Mary Catherine. Come on up, perfect timing. Carl Sandburg Junior High, Stephanie and Michelle Chavez. Plum Grove Junior High, Jody Roos. Walter Sunling Junior High, Michelle Belmont. Winston Campus Junior High, Chrissy Trilling Racis. And this is who we have representing our PTAs, PTSAs tonight. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys all for coming. We know taking time out from your personal lives on top of what you all do for your PTA, PTSA, and all of our kids is definitely appreciated. I know firsthand, being a parent in the schools for a number of years, what a difference the PTA, PTSA makes at each school in so many different ways. So thanks for all that you do and being part of our children's lives.
And Lisa is going to give you a little token of our appreciation. It can't match what we really appreciate for all the work you put in, but it's a little something.
Can't match the light up pen.
Can't match the light up pen.
Probably not a light up pen, guys. Sorry.
We have a light up pen too.
You know, it's a big prize, the light up pen.
Of course you are.
Their names
Make it work. Hey, you know, pen, they probably do it.
I know. Long. I mean, it's worth being president.
I still should one last one. Look at this stupid cup. I snitched her one.
When
you look at that board, kid, and you think about that.
Right.
His staff.
It's okay. No problem.
You too just can't say that. That's consistent for the whole
He's got a little brother to touch him.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Two spelling bees.
Place of honor.
Sit there.
Reverend tells us that.
The next item in my section is a presentation from our friends from Harper College. They are here to talk to us about an initiative they've got going. So I would like to invite up the Harper people to kind of share with us their initiative and give us their information about the PowerPoint.
Good evening. I'm Ashley. How are you?
How are you doing?
Good. It's good to see you. Slightly different than the last time at graduations.
Yes. Different venue and environment.
A little cooler in here.
Oh, yes. The graduation was a little warm.
So Michelle, Ron, and Michelet, I'm sorry, Ron, and Amy, would you please introduce yourselves?
And we traded Amy out tonight for Kim.
Kim, oh yeah, Kim.
Amy was originally scheduled. So I am Michelet Smith.
All the time.
I'm Vice President for Workforce Solutions at Harper College, and I'm joined by my colleagues.
I'm Ron Alley, Executive Vice President of Finance and Administrative Services at the college.
Hi, and Kim Pohl. I'm the Manager of Media Relations and Legislative Affairs.
And future parent of a District 15 student.
2 now, yes.
Two, that's right.
Go Kimball Hill.
Well, thank you all so much for your time this evening. We wanted to be here to give you an update about our campus master plan and our community outreach efforts. So we want to give you a quick reminder about who we are as Harper. Our district includes more than 520,000 people across 23 communities. We serve approximately 3,500 students each year, and we are focused on student success and ensuring that our students complete so they have a successful future. To that end, we believe strongly that regional partnerships lead to success. So we have worked really closely with our local high schools, our four-year universities, businesses, and employers on a variety of initiatives that are focused on helping our students succeed, such as our early college credit or our registered apprenticeship program and things of that nature. Our goal is to keep college affordable for our district residents. And so we've done this through some innovative programs like our Promise Scholarship Program. It has turned out to be a national model that provides opportunities for students to earn up to 2 years tuition-free at Harper if they meet certain benchmarks throughout their 4 years of high school. Today, we have about 6,200 students that have met the criteria from last year. So we have students that are continuing to be Promise Scholars. And the fall of 2019, we look forward to our first cohort coming on campus with us. The Promise program is not just a scholarship, though. We really see the program as a way of helping students in our community develop the skills that are required to be successful in the college and in the workforce, which benefits all of us. The program has an immediate impact. In the meantime, each student is required to give back to the community anywhere from 5 to 15 hours of service, and that activity is happening right now while they're in high school before they even get to Harper. So you can see our commitment to what we do for our community. So as part of our 50th anniversary celebration, we spent some time talking to our community over the last 2 years and finding out about how can we plan best for the college's future. And those conversations involved outreach and engagement with community members, and we developed a plan that focuses on 3 specific priorities that our community identified through feedback in terms of how we can make sure that we move the college forward without raising taxes. So here are a few of those priorities. Priority number 1 is really aimed at driving economic opportunity in our community. We know that by 2020, about 2/3 of all jobs will require some post-secondary education for Dist. And so we know that training beyond high school is imperative, and we feel that Harper has a key role in that. So we plan to address that first priority by building a new collaborative, innovative facility. And we want that facility to be the hub for regional economic development. It'll help establish kind of a business resource center for programs such as our Fast Track program, our customized training, small business development center. We also see it as being the home of the University Center, where we are partnering with universities to offer 4-year degree opportunities right here in the community. And it also will be a center that will help residents keep current with their skills for today's workforce. So that's kind of our lens with priority 1. Our second priority is really aimed at educating for today's high-tech jobs. And as you can see there on the slide, we're looking at jobs in the medical field and technology. As jobs have evolved and changed, Harper realizes we must also make that evolution. And so we plan to address that second priority by modernizing our facilities and our curriculum. We believe that we can do this, and it'll allow us to better train for skilled workers and support innovation. We think that we can renovate some facilities on campus with academic programs like business and accounting, education, and then we hope to expand and improve in healthcare and manufacturing facilities because those fields are continuing to grow as well. Our final and third priority is to maintain and improve our campus infrastructure. So just like our own homes, we've got to take care of the physical plant. So we are proud of our campus. We feel it's a beautiful campus, a safe campus. It supports student learning, but we realize we need to protect that investment. And the community was loud and clear about that. So we plan to address priority 3 by maintaining and replacing roofs and electrical, plumbing, aging facility needs so that we can keep current. And we'll invest in technologies that support education and increase efficiencies in those buildings. When we talk about how we're going to fund those priorities, we really believe that because we've been fiscally responsible, we have an opportunity to fund these priorities without raising taxes. We believe we can do this through renewing existing bonds. The bonds that were issued in 2000 are due to be paid off by 2020. At that time, property taxes would decrease by approximately $23 for the owner of a $250,000 house. Issuing new bonds would keep those taxes at the same level, and the college would be able to raise an estimated $180 million without raising taxes. And so we feel that because we've been really fiscally responsible and good stewards of the community tax dollars, we currently have a AAA bond rating, which is the rating based on Moody's rating scale. We feel that this will allow Harper to borrow money for capital improvements at the lowest possible interest rates, and that ultimately will benefit taxpayers. So just to kind of recap where we came in, we believe we can fund these priorities through issuing new bonds, $180 million without raising taxes. We see that as $28.5 million addressing that first priority around driving economic opportunity, the new building for economic development, and keeping the skills current for residents. We see $88.7 million as addressing priority 2, and that was, if you recall, focused on educating for high-tech jobs, improving our facilities and curriculum around accounting and education, health careers, and manufacturing. And then we feel that the $62.8 million of that $180 million would be focused on priority 3, and that's about maintaining and improving the campus infrastructure and investing in technologies. And we believe that all these priorities can be funded issuing new bonds for $180 million without raising taxes. The Harper Board of Trustees has placed a referendum on this November's ballot. And at this point, voters will have the final say in approving the plan for addressing these priorities. We want to encourage you, if you have any questions or want additional information, to go to harpercollege.edu/strongfuture. We want to thank you again for your time, and at this point, we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
I think you did an excellent job explaining. I really appreciate the partnership that we have with Harper College. We have Harper ambassadors that go to many of our schools that make a connection there. They've gone to graduations. They go to special events and connect with kids in the schools. They've even brought some resources into the schools. So we appreciate those ambassadors, including Dr. Ender, who takes time to be one of our ambassadors. We've enjoyed sending kids to your college and career fairs. They've really come back energized and thought those were very meaningful. Each year you offer tours to our junior high kids, and they take you up on that, and they go over there and visit the school. And we have 2 distinguished alumni in our midst of administrators because they graduated from Harper, and they did such a good job. So we appreciate your partnership and wish you well with your referendum.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
I had no idea the scope of Harper, I have to say, with the number of communities and the amount of people served.
Oh, yeah.
If you'd ever like to come, we'd love to show you around.
Thanks.
Just bring your walking shoes, Lisa.
I always wear the walking shoes. So. You too.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next item in my section is our student assignment plan with one of those distinguished alumni from Harper College, Dr. Barbini, and his team.
My legs are longer.
I would like to, as we're queuing this up, thanks, Julie, just do a shout out for our second Harvard Distinguished alumni, Dr. Meg Schnorr, who also happened to nominate me for that honor. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have received it.
making fun of me.
It was jealousy. I was green with envy, Dr. Schnorr. It's true. So, good evening, Dr. Thompson, President Shupai, and members of the Board of Education. This evening, I'm joined by Sue Gehring, our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, and Dr. Cheryl Wolfel, our Executive Director of Second Language Programs, to provide you with a presentation regarding our student assignment plan for the 2018-2019 school year. So, in terms of providing an overview of what we're going to share with you this evening, and also it's included in your packet of materials, we're going to talk a little bit about a fall housing report update in terms of enrollment trends. And then we're going to dive into student assignment in terms of the resources that we've allocated to meet the needs of our students in the areas of general education, our second language programs, and then also our special education programs, which is why I'm joined by this distinguished team that's before you this evening. And then we're going to talk about our certified staffing levels. We're going to compare, where we're at in terms of our full-time equivalents, or FTEs, from this year against last year and then the year before that, so that you can see some trend information therein. We're also going to talk a little bit about grants and how increases in grant funding has also led to, some exciting new positions being added to our district, as well as offsetting some of those costs associated with FTE. And then we'll end with questions and answers. So that's what's on the agenda. So, last board meeting in September, there was an overview regarding student enrollment across the district. The chart that is before you or table, or graph, is the same information that was provided at the board meeting in terms of the school years beginning in 2008 and 2009 through last school year, 2017-18. All of that information, all of those dots, can be found in terms of that enrollment information on the Illinois State Board of Education website under the fall housing reporting data there, publicly accessible. Every year, around this time every year, we have to submit information, enrollment information district-wide to ISB. That's where it's posted. The information that's on the farthest dot on your right under 2018-19, that was information updated, enrollment information updated as of September 14th, so that we can get information ready for the board packet. So in terms of general trends, since the 2012-2013 school year, District 15 has experienced a decline of student enrollment across the district of 557 students in kindergarten through 8th grade, if you're looking at the line graph that is yellow. It's below the blue, which is pre-K, our preschool, through 8th grade. This year, we're at 38 less students district-wide when we look at kindergarten through 8th grade in comparison to the 2017-2018 school year. So it is a decline, but it's a decline of 38 students. In terms of how we allocate resources to meet the needs of our general education students, we do so using targets established by the school board. These are very helpful for us as they provide guidance in terms of making decisions. These are targets. They're things that we aim for, right? Understanding that anytime you aim for a target, sometimes you're going to hit it, sometimes you're going to be a little low, sometimes you're going to be a little bit high. And so as we go through this table, the Board of Education class size target for kindergarten is 20 students in a general ed classroom, 24 students in a general ed classroom in grades 1 through 3. We consider grades 1 through 3 our primary grades. Our grades 4 through 6 have a board target of 26. Those are our intermediate grades. And then grades 7 and 8 have a board target of 28. So if we just look at averages across each grade, what our data tells us in all of the detail by school is included in the packet, which makes it more voluminous than other packets because we include information regarding gen ed, special ed, EL, etc. in the packet, which is available to you and available publicly. But if we just look at averages, we are at every grade level in the district below board target. That is good news. But as with any news, right, averages only tell us so much. And Board Member Border brought that to our attention, before he was on the board, and then while he was on the board, and he's currently on the board, to assist us in terms of making this an even better report. So the slides that are going to begin from here on out in terms of Gen Ed, the basis of that was working with Dr. Border or Board Member Border and Dr. Tom Edgar. See how easy it is to get that degree?
Got that degree, right?
So exactly, it's just that easy, right? I only wish it was that easy. But in working with Dave and then in working with Tom Edgar, we were able to come up with the slides that, you will be presented with now, to give us more information, because averages only tell us so much, and it's all about continuous growth and improvement. So when we look at this particular table, it gives us information regarding bands. It starts with kindergarten, but then we look at grades 1 through 3 as a band, and then grades 4 through 6. And so kindergarten, 56% of our Gen Ed kindergarten sections are either on target or below the target of 20 students in a classroom established by the Board of Education. And then our bands of 1 through 3 and then 4 through 6, they are very similar insofar as 75% of our grades 1 through 6 classrooms are, 75% are either at or below target, and 25% of our classrooms in grades 1 through 6 are over Board of Education targets. This chart, or this table, is a graphic representation associated with that information, but what it does is it further breaks down that information by grade. And the color scheme here is going to be important because it carries through the entire presentation. Blue is below target, green is on target, and red, appropriately so, would be over Board of Education targets. So you can see, just visually by grades, kinder on the far left through grade 6 on the far right, we do see more blue and green than we do see red, all right, in that particular breakdown. What we've done is we've even distilled the information further, because the previous chart was just by grade and percentage of classes that were, at, below, or over target. What the next 3 slides show, is a deeper dive. All right, the granular level detail is in the packet, but this is the number of sections and the number of students in each section with an indicator of below, at, or over target. Once again, below is blue, at is green, and then red is over. And so when you look at this, the dashed line that's vertical, that's on target. What's to the left is below, what's to the right is above. And so approximately, once again for kindergarten, 56% of our Gen Ed kindergarten classes are at or below target. The remaining 44 are over. And then this is a breakdown of our primary grades by grades, with grade 1, our multi-age and grade classrooms at Willow Bend, the 1-2s, the second, and then the third grades. And once again, when we look at overall information, we're looking at 75% or so of our primary classrooms that are at target or below, and 25% that are over. And then when we look at our intermediate sections, that trend continues at approximately 75% of our Gen Ed 4 through 6 classrooms at or under target, and then 25% over. Now, I want to point out, anytime you see red, especially red on those charts that moves further to the right on the x-axis, all right, that's where we have classes that are over board targets. And what principals do in working with their staff, because kids don't come to each school in neat packages, with even numbers that align with board target. Sometimes we have classes over target, sometimes we have classes below target. In the majority of our classrooms, it's below target. Those that are in the red and to the right, what happens are principals at each of those schools engage in conversations with their staff, and then they allocate their PA, or program assistant time, to oftentimes bring more PA time of their existing allotment into those Gen Ed classrooms. So even though we do have 25% of our classrooms, grades 1 through 6, over target, in the vast majority of those classes, especially the further right you go, what typically happens is building principals and working with their staff make sure that we have additional PA allocation time therein. And our principals, and I say this every year, do a great job advocating for their children and their staff. If there are unique circumstances that exist, the district will, upon reviewing and evaluating them, oftentimes provide them with more resources in the form of additional PA time above and beyond what is their typical building allocation. So, this year, some of the considerations for this year as we built the assignment plan that's before you is that, although many of our schools have experienced a decline in enrollment, some of our schools have actually seen a double-digit increase in student enrollment, those buildings being Hunting Ridge, Pleasant Hill, and Willow Bend at the elementary level. All right, space is exceedingly tight in those schools, and we're at a point now at those 3 schools where if we see additional enrollment at any of those sites, we're going to have to start making some decisions. And those decisions include, but are not limited to, programs that exist in those schools being relocated to other schools to make room for more general education enrollment, placing art or music on a cart, or other options. And there really aren't many other options, other than looking at mobile classrooms or, which is what the Boundary Task Force is working on, looking at redrawing school boundaries. There are other ways to solve those issues as well, but we are really at a premium of space at those 3 buildings. We've repurposed all the computer labs into additional classroom spaces. There's really not much else we can do at those 3 locations, so it's going to require continued monitoring.
Matt, quick question. What is the above target threshold? In other words, you're looking for target. At what point do you say that's too many kids in a classroom, we have to put another section?
So that is typically done in consultation with the building principal. There's really no magic number per se, but the closer we get to 30 students, that is typically where we really start looking. So there are some sections that are at 29. We have some primary and intermediate sections that are at 29. We work with the building, or I work with the building principals. We have conversations. They typically allocate, as I said before, some additional existing PA time into those classrooms, and then we go from there. If, on the other hand, there are special circumstances in those classrooms, all right, so there are certain laws. For example, in student services land, we have a rule. It's a law by the State Board of Education. It's called the 70-30 law. You can't have more than 30% of students in a given gen ed class that have an IEP. If we have a situation where, we have that, we might have to look at, breaking up and adding a 3rd section as well. So there's any number of factors, but typically the closer we get to 30, that's when we start looking, or if the building principal is like, there are some really, really unique factors here, that we need to talk about, we'll certainly listen. And that's typically when I bring in representatives from the Department of Instruction, Dr. Tom Edgar, Dr. Laura Swanlin on the assessment side to look at student assessment. We look at our PBIS data in terms of office discipline referrals. We work alongside building principals to make sense of that. And in the past, we've even met with parent groups to go through that same information, if and when there have been concerns, regarding staffing at an elementary level in the area of gen ed. So there's no magic number because targets we aim for, sometimes we hit, sometimes we're over, sometimes we're under, but typically closer to 30 we really start to look. And there are no sections, at elementary that I'm aware of as of today that are at 30 students.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so while Matt has talked that our enrollment is going down district-wide, the EL population is increasing. And so this particular graph shows for 2010, the blue being what we started the year with in the fall, the red being what it goes up to in January. And then so you can see that every fall we've gone up. And even with our exits, which is the yellow or the orange, our exits, we still go up in the fall. So we're making up for whatever children we exited, we're getting them back and plus more in the fall. The exits you'll see go up and down. That has to do mostly with the state changing the exit criteria on the access. So they changed it. You can tell which years they changed it. They changed it in 2013-14, and then they changed it again in 15-16, and then again in 16-17. So this last year, 17-18, you can see we've gone up again. So as long as they don't change it, we're anticipating going up again with our exits. Right now, there's not talk on changing the exit criteria, but they tend to do that within 2 to 3 weeks and then let us know. So right now, there's no change for that.
Quick question on that, the exit criteria.
Yes.
They keep changing it. They keep changing it to raise it to a higher standard, so the kids are better
Great
equipped
question.
to go forward with English language?
They did raise it in, I think, 16, 17 to increase it. So they made it at a 5.0 and composite and a 4.2 in reading and writing. Then the next year, that summer, in fact, they changed it and dropped it to a 4.8, just the composite score.
And that's a totally different test, right, Cheryl?
It's aligned to now the Common Core, and before it wasn't aligned to Common Core.
Yeah, because that's part of what I was wondering. Are they raising the standard, or are they changing it in general, or both?
They're doing both. They raised the standard, they made it a lot more difficult, and then they raised the exit criteria.
Okay. And the rationale behind doing that, they felt that kids were not properly prepared to exit?
Exactly. That we were exiting too soon.
Now, just a clarification, because I recall either you or Dr. Edgar saying this during something that I was part of. Even though a child may test out and hit the exit criteria, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to exit the program, right?
Right. The state regs are that the child has the right to stay in the program for 3 years.
Okay.
So we have many children that would exit at kindergarten first or second, but the parents have asked that they stay in the bilingual program, even though they're not coded LEP anymore and they don't take access. They still stay in our bilingual classrooms. Correct. That is correct. So with that, we've got, for this year, we did start assigning teachers that are dual certified. And what that means is we have teachers that have their general ed for self-contained classrooms and their bilingual certifications. So we started moving those teachers into teacher of record. So that means that they are a third grade gen ed teacher, but they have bilingual certifications, so they can provide the services for the bilingual children without us having to use a bilingual resource teacher. So that really did help us cut down on the FTEs. And plus, it provided better services for our kids. Because we actually did sort of a pilot to see how well those children were doing if they had dual certified teachers. What we found is they did much better because they were actually getting services all day long, and their language needs were being met all day long. So after we started changing to all of our bilingual sites. All of our bilingual sites now have third grade dual certified teachers, so we're not providing resource teachers for third grade, and I think we have 3 schools that have moved up to 4th grade with bilingual certified teachers as teachers of record. So that's helping with the FTEs. We were very proud of ourselves that we were mandated a Korean and a Tamil teacher, and we found them. So we really didn't think we'd find Tamil, but we did. So that's at Willow Bend for us. So
Cheryl, will you just tell us what kicks in that mandate to have a teacher that speaks that language?
It is 20 or more students who speak the same language who qualify in the same attendance area. So we actually have more than 20 children who qualify for the program that speak Tamil, and that speak Telugu, and that speak Korean, Japanese, all the languages that we are mandated, and it has to be in that attendance center. For us, those languages, Tamil, Telugu, Bulgarian, is all at Willow Bend. Those are our languages there, so we have teachers that can support the children.
20 across multiple grade levels.
Yes, exactly, yes.
and information regarding, various languages, because we've reached that threshold of 20 or more students with that language at a school. That's all included in your packet, in materials as well as available to the public. And, Cheryl, just ballparking in terms of, looking at meeting the needs of kids flexibly, with the dual certified teachers, which we did study, and we did find that, kids benefited because they weren't being pulled out for service. They had it in their classroom. If you were to ballpark, and I won't hold you to it, how many FTE do you think that we realized savings in this year moving to that model?
Well, we're probably at least six to eight, because we would have had to add a lot more bilingual resource teachers to meet the needs of the kids.
So these folks save money and they're providing you a better service for the kids. So that was an excellent move that they made. Although it's becoming more and more challenging to find bilingually certified teachers.
Correct.
How does that work if, let's say you've got a second grade teacher that's got the dual certification in a language? Does that teacher also cover other children in third grade, fourth grade that might need the ELL resource, or no?
Yes, if they're our resource teachers cover multiple grade levels.
Okay, but if it's dual certified,
then it's
one grade level, the students in that classroom.
It is a self-contained teacher, yes. Okay, so then our professional development, we are continuing to provide the biliteracy, bicultural professional development. Today, I think we had 4 of our dual language teachers out for biliteracy training. Today, we had a K2 meeting, which was all PD. So that continues as our population changes. We successfully opened our 5 dual language classrooms, and it's really, if you're having a down day, or just go in those classrooms. It's hysterical, and it's so fun to watch the kids, and the parents always share their stories. So we had a parent, she was reading the picture book reading, so there weren't any words, but the child was telling the mom about her picture, a monolingual child, and so she tells the mom, this is un gato. And the mom was so surprised because the child doesn't speak Spanish, or didn't before they started, but when she told the picture, she used the Spanish word for cat. So the mom was like, I couldn't believe that, and she didn't think anything about it. The child didn't think anything about it, just continued to talk about the book. So it's fascinating. It's really fascinating. Okay, so like Scott mentioned, the recruitment, and so it is a challenge. It is a challenge. We currently have a position that's not filled, a Spanish bilingual position not filled, that we have a long-term sub in, and we're anticipating another opening. And we have no applicants. I mean, there just aren't other certified teachers. So Lisa Nuss and I have been talking to Roosevelt, National Louis, and Northern to see if we can partner with them to be a student teaching site, so that we get some of their student teachers that are biliterate and bicultural to recruit them and to watch them, so that we get them as teachers. It is quite a challenge, and it's not just for us. It's across the nation. I think colleges are really scrambling to get the qualified applicants and get all the demands met, but it is an increasing challenge to get that done.
I know our hope was to be able to broaden dual language beyond the couple schools that it's at for kindergarten next year. Is that going to be feasible if we can't find
to other schools?
Teachers?
I don't know. We know already for next year at the 2 sites that we will already have 2 openings for first grade teachers as we expand, because right now the bilingual program runs 1-2 multi-age, and with dual language you can't do that, so we have to separate those classes. So we already know that we're looking at 2 more first grade openings. It will come down to the staff, what kind of staff we have. But
and every year we'll have to add new teachers as our first cohort ages up.
As it ages up, that's what's going to happen. Actually, we're sitting really well right now at both of the schools. We have dual certified teachers. Winston Campus Elementary has dual certified at every grade level except 6th right now. So that's built in as long as no one leaves or something else doesn't happen. Jane Addams, we have all the way up to 4th grade that we have dual certified teachers, but that's for one or two sections. As they go up, Jane Addams would need 3 sections every year they go up, and Winston would need 2 sections. So it's going to become a challenge. We get real creative, though, and we just keep our options open about what that looks like. And our staff, they're very, very good at letting us know when they have friends or family moving into the area. If they're dual certified, they'll say, "Oh, here's their resume." So that helps us a lot to have that word of mouth. We are anticipating expanding to 1st grade. We're meeting with Dual Language New Mexico is coming back out in January to meet with our leadership teams. Our leadership teams at both schools continue to meet. We've had our first cultural night, went very, very well. Our BPAC parents also attended and invited our monolingual dual parents to all of their BPAC meetings. So I think that some of them are attending. Those meetings are conducted all in Spanish. So the parents that come will have to use our ear sets to translate back to English. So there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of community building that we're seeing within the dual language, reaching out to the BPAC reaching out. So it's really good stuff to see how the community is pulling together like that. And so we are monitoring our numbers because we're looking at the 20. We are very close to being mandated a Hindi-speaking teacher. And more Spanish we always need. We are looking possibly to another Japanese and to Urdu. So as the kids just keep enrolling and keep coming, and so we just keep doing the best we can. And I think that, watching our scores and watching the excitement, we've got new programs in to help our gen ed teachers. We're working with CLR, the Culturally Linguistic Responsive Teaching, which is good for all kids and helps all teachers educate all children. So we're looking toward a lot of that kind of PD. So it's going.
Okay. Related to special education, and if we're talking about this current year, we're really monitoring caseloads. And caseloads and workload are different in special education. So for example, students come with different kinds of needs. So not only do we look at the number of students that a teacher or a staff member may serve, but also the degree to which they have needs. So some children have, speech and a special education teacher with an occupational therapist, et cetera. So it's really balancing all of those related services as well as a special education teacher. We also have to look at the class size requirements. The State Board of Education put some parameters in by which we can't really exceed. So for example, a self-contained special education classroom can have no more than 13 students with a certified teacher and a paraprofessional. And for some programs that works. In some of our classrooms with really severe and profound needs, sometimes 8 children is a full classroom. So we have to utilize our judgment in terms of the severity and intensity of needs as well. If we have enrollments, we have to look to the state and request a deviation. Right now, I'm writing a deviation for one of the classrooms at a junior high school because we had that 14th student unexpectedly based upon students who moved in, and then a little bit later in September, another move in. So there are some options when we exceed that 13. So we're always watching that. Dr. Barbini mentioned this, what we call the 70-30 rule, lovingly refer to that. In that general education classrooms have 70% of their students who don't have special education needs and no more than 30% who have IEPs. So sometimes we need to watch that as well and change children's schedules at the semester, for example, in junior high school to accommodate that. We're always watching and reallocating staff in special education because just as in gen ed buildings, the children don't arrive in neat packages so that we have the exact number in a particular classroom. That happens in special education as well. And our teachers are quite used to sometimes being shifted around and working at different schools, or being part-time in one school and part-time in another school. And we do make those adjustments throughout the year before we look to adding staff. We are watching carefully because sometimes we do need to add some staff. And, this year we reallocated, for example, a program from Hunting Ridge. We had a reduction in numbers, so we took that FTE, that teacher, and used that at Conyers Learning Academy because we had a real spike in 3, 4, and 5-year-olds coming in. So that's a very common practice in the special education world, is reallocating existing staff. One of the things that we're really focusing on carefully this school year are the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of children with disabilities. We have seen what I would consider a dramatic influx in children who have behavioral needs. And when we talk about social and emotional needs, we kind of refer to internalizing needs versus externalizing needs, and we have children in both kind of arenas. The children who are externalizers, everybody knows about them. Their peers know about them, their teachers, and sometimes, people throughout the school. The internalizers are just as needy. They have just as many significant needs, but sometimes those are children who have those severe anxiety disorders and who really aren't available for learning on the other side of things. And so we watch carefully for children with those needs as well. Some of the things that we've done to kind of address and mitigate some of the influx that we've had with social emotional needs is that we are utilizing one of our most veteran special education teachers this year as a special education facilitator for behavior. She did that part-time at a very small portion of her schedule last year, and she's doing that full-time starting in a couple of weeks. She goes to classrooms, she observes students, she provides guidance and strategies to the teachers and the paraprofessionals in the room, as well as to the parents. They implement her suggestions. She comes back again in 4 to 6 weeks to observe and make additional suggestions. We're always trying to improve the services within the classroom. For some of those very unique situations, we are contracting with a board-certified behavior analyst, which is a very specialized field for, it's a certification over and above a special education degree. And we contract with someone who is a retired teacher from another district who went out and got her BCBA license. And she works with some of the most significant needs in the district when we're really approaching having to move a student perhaps to a therapeutic day school outside of our district. So we utilize the board-certified behavior analyst as well. We did add a primary, self-contained special education classroom for children with behavioral needs. That's a new classroom at Thomas Jefferson this year, because we're finding the trend is for our younger children. The students who are having the most struggles last year and this year are kindergarten, first, and second graders. Once we tend to get a handle on them and they develop more language and more self-regulation, we make some more dramatic progress. But when they're very little and they're in fight or flight mode all the time, that's the programming that we're really working on the most right now in addressing the needs for those youngsters. So we did add a new classroom. And then just to let you know, typically throughout the year, students move in who have IEPs that already place them in our most intensive behavioral classrooms. This year we had 16 new students moving in with self-contained IEPs. So those were children we didn't know about until enrollment in August. And in looking at those students, that's about twice as many as we typically would enroll in the fall going into self-contained classrooms. So that was a bit of a surprise for us, and we were, having to add sometimes that 12th student into a classroom when we're already bumping up against 13 being our maximum. So that is another situation that we're just watching carefully. And looking ahead to next year, what we're really needing to monitor and watch are those social, emotional, behavioral needs. We feel like the academic needs, while those are significant for families and when their child is struggling academically, that is very important and that is very serious. We believe that the students are having their needs met in a pretty appropriate way with really solid programming. We are feeling a bit behind the 8 ball with the social, emotional, behavioral needs, and working very, very hard to look at our existing programming and looking at what's really meeting the needs of children, but also then looking, as our children have greater needs, what are we needing to do to adjust our program models? Because what we were doing 4 or 5 years ago is meeting the need for many children, but not all. So we're really looking this year at what our program models are currently in place, what kind of needs they're meeting, but where are we finding the holes so that we can be more effective moving ahead. Any questions on special education, IEPs, or students with?
I just had a question. Do you find that there's any sort of shortage now of program assistants or paraprofessionals?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We, with paraprofessionals, work extremely hard, and for many, many people, that is a very nice position for them because it matches nicely with family schedules. The economy is great right now, and people are finding jobs outside of the school world. We also used to have lots of people working as paraprofessionals who perhaps didn't get their ideal teaching job in the fall, so they will then apply for a paraprofessional job. That didn't happen as much last year and really didn't happen much this year. So a lot of students who graduate from college used to take the paraprofessional jobs as they're getting their foot in the door, getting some experience, and they really needed health insurance. Now families are able to keep their youngsters on their health insurance through the age of 26. That's not as much of an enticement as it used to be. So we are really struggling with the shortage of paraprofessionals and being really creative in terms of prioritizing where the PAs must be because it's in a child's IEP, and then where they must be because of our class size requirements, and then kind of moving people around depending upon the day. We're also using substitutes right now to fill those needs as we're recruiting and interviewing and hiring, because paraprofessionals are critical to special education programs.
When you provide such excellent service to students, the word gets out and people move into the district just for special ed services. So.
Okay, so Matt had alluded to using some of our grant funding. So for the second language, the state funds, we are able to use, for state and federal, we're able to use those funds to supplement what we're already required to do. So with the second language state funds, all of the bilingual kindergarten teachers, half of their salary and half of their benefits are paid with state funds so that we can provide all day. Because the district does not offer all day, we're allowed to use that funding to supplement that cost. And then their Title I funds are used to supplement our most needy schools to offer additional support, either through an RCS or additional instructional coaches.
And so for the 2018-2019 school year, we did see an increase in funding at both the state and federal level to allow us to incorporate an additional 7.5 FTE, or full-time teacher equivalents, certified staff, and use grant dollars to offset the cost of those FTE. Now, this slide is new this year because we wanted to be able to show the board, that based on state and federal revenue sources, we do use those when and where appropriate. And a lot of times we have to follow very stringent guidelines in those areas to use those funds for staff, but when we can and where we can, we do. So we've seen an increase in funding for 7.5 FTE. And that becomes important when we look at this slide, because even though we're down 38 students, that's 38 students across 20 buildings. And so the impact is going to be relatively minor. And as we talked about before, kids don't come in those neat, orderly packages. We know that about our own kids, much less hundreds of kids that go to a school. And so based on looking at the needs of our kids, gen ed, special ed, and then our second language programs, we did see a need to increase staffing by 4.12 FTE for this school year, the 18-19 school year, over last school year, which was the 17-18 year. But the good news is, the increase in grant-funded positions have pretty much completely offset that increase. as well as the fact that, had we not received those grant funds, right? Some of those coaches, instructional coaches and RCSs, which if we decided to add would have come out of local dollars. If we hadn't have done that, if we hadn't have gotten the grants, the plan that would be presented to you would actually be under the FTE by approximately 3.4 FTE over last year. It was because of the influx in grant funding that allowed us to not only offset that increase, but then bring on additional staff that we know is going to make a difference. Instructional coaches are really very important for school districts to consider in terms of improving outcomes for students. We know that the effect size and the effect of having folks like that in our schools is quite powerful, and that's why under the leadership of Dr. Meg Schnorr, a recommendation was made to increase in that particular area as well for this year. And so with that being said, what questions do you have for us that you haven't already asked?
It's a small number of sections, but the 1-2 is carved out. Can you talk a little bit about how we made that determination, like how long that's been in place and sort of what the success is of that joint classroom?
All right, so our multi-age classrooms at 1-2, we have them in bilingual self-contained, but I think you're referring to the gen ed classrooms that exist at Willow Bend. Willow Bend Elementary School, up until this school year, had multi-age classes across all grade levels with the exception of kindergarten, right, up until this year. The school, under the leadership of our former principal, Melissa Sabatino, engaged her staff and parent communities throughout the course of last school year to review this. Now, we have done several studies in terms of the impact of multi-age classes led by Dr. Edgar, and what we've learned is that, the impact, is powerful. It is good. We do no harm by virtue of going multi-age when we compare to other similar schools. Right? So Melissa worked with her staff, Melissa worked with her parent community, and what that school decided last spring was that they were going to go straight grade in grades 3, 4, 5, and 6 for the 18-19 school year. The grades 1 and 2 teachers decided, and the families, also supported that, that continued model. Primarily, for the social and emotional impact associated with kids at that age working together. And so that was the decision that was made. That could very well be a decision that, is going to be reviewed by the now principal, Bob Harris, with his staff and his parent community. And ultimately, what our job, or what my job is to do is, it's looking at enrollment, right, and then determining what they should be receiving in terms of FTE, and then the buildings have to decide how they want it. So if they want to continue with 1-2, we'll continue with 1-2. If they choose to change, then, we'll make that adjustment as well. So that will more than likely be, and I'm anticipating it will be a conversation, that we're going to have as a part of the staffing conversations for the 19-20 school year that are going to begin in January. So all of those 1-2 classes are either at or below board target.
Yeah, and it's always going to help smooth out the variations you get year to year. That's why I was just interested if there was more, so thanks for the background.
Well, I think you can see all the work that goes into staffing. It starts in January for the following school year, and it continues even as been indicated tonight, that it goes on even after the school year started. We started several sections after the school year started this year. These folks have done a nice job, and I think the information you've seen tonight is that we want to provide the best education for kids, but we also want to balance that with being fiscally responsible, and I think this year we've done that superbly. So thanks for the report tonight and for all the good hard work.
And Dr. Thompson, can I make one more comment? This is truly a team effort, and Sue and Cheryl are superstars in their own right and in their own areas, and it's wonderful being able to work with them through this process because it's dynamic and it doesn't just stop today. I mean, it's ongoing, even though the process starts in January. And although anytime you acknowledge or recognize people, you are unfortunately going to miss out on acknowledging and recognizing some people. So that's my disclaimer. But I do want to thank once again Dr. Tom Edgar for helping, to expand and improve this report in terms of analytics, because because averages, as Mr. Dave Border have indicated, only tell us a part of the story, right? Honorary doctorate coming your way, Dave, right? But then also I want to special mention Meg Schnorr, for, her advocacy in terms of the instructional coaches. Those are very important. And then coupled with Mr. Adam Palmer and helping with our allocations in the area of specials, art, music, and PE, making sure that we're appropriately staffed there. And then I want to end it with a thank you to our very own Miss Lisa Nuss. She was absolutely pivotal and instrumental with respect to looking at how we serve our students, with second language needs in terms of the dual certification. Constantly thinking out of the box in terms of ways that we can enhance the experience for kids while also, really focusing in on, being fiscally responsible, as well as the fact that she's responsible. Ultimately, we give her the numbers. We say, here's how we need to staff each building, and she's responsible for putting the right people on the right seats of the bus, and she does exceptionally well on that. So Lisa, special thank you, to you as well. Maybe next year you can be up here with us. So thank you.
Thank you very much. There's a few items left in my section I wanted to cover tonight. The first is, last night, Mike Adamczyk, Craig Phillips, and I attended the Village of Palatine Planning Commission meeting to talk about the 1311 Rand Road Park Place building. Craig did an excellent job presenting our case for requesting special use of that facility. After he did an excellent job and we had some comments, some questions, the commission indicated that they took a straw poll and they were really not going to support it last night. But they gave us some indication that if we came back with some better information and some solutions, primarily to the traffic flow in the parking lot and on Rand Road, that I think they would be willing to approve it at that point. So we have a contingent appeal. We'll be coming back November 6th and making that appeal with new information to them. And on November 6th, they should make a decision about whether they're going to grant us that special use. After that, the recommendation would go before the village council, and the village council is the deciding group. The planning commission is just a recommending group. So we would have to go before the village council to seek their approval for special usage of that building. And then if they eventually approve that, then we would have to come back to you to say, is either one of these avenues that we've talked about to get full-day kindergarten something you're interested in, or do we continue to move forward kind of with status quo? So that's kind of the time frame and the sequence of events that I see moving forward. Plan Commission people were very nice. They were really very, very helpful and good people.
So a quick question on
Sure.
that. So the November 6th, new appeal at the Planning Commission, then what is the time frame after that for Village Council? 2 weeks?
They haven't indicated that at this point. But, I would hope that we could get on the nearest village council committee of the whole meeting that they had set up. We have, as you saw on your agenda, we've asked for an extension of the due diligence period for another 30 days, so that should get us into December. I think we will have enough time. If it looks like we're going to run up against another deadline, we'll ask for another extension so you can have that decision without having to worry about any financial loss.
Okay.
Second thing is, last Tuesday, on the 25th of September, we had some consultants from BWP here, and they conducted some focus groups to talk about the next superintendent, qualities, priorities the district has, the individuals from different groups. So they met with a bunch of different stakeholders beginning at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and they stayed until 7:30 or later at night. They also sent out a survey that's been electronically submitted, and they think that they have a pretty good handle now on what the characteristics and the profile of the next superintendent should be. And with that profile, then they are starting to screen the applicants, and they will invite some of those applicants in for interviews to narrow it down so that they can present you a slate of 6 people for that. I think it's November 10th. Is that what we decided? November 10th date. So I think we're on track. Everything's going well. And although They said it was typical. We didn't have a huge number of people turning out for those focus groups, so they think that many people submitted their information through this survey.
Did they provide a count on survey responses as of yet?
They have not given that to me yet. They will provide that to you, how many people responded. I think they'll give you the survey results, too. The next thing I want to talk about quickly was just busing. As was alluded to with Zubair's question, we're having difficulty finding program assistants. They're just not people looking for those kinds of jobs. As you know, we have an ongoing issue with finding bus drivers, as well as some of our nutrition services folks. And so we've got voids of employees in several areas. But with busing, it's created a number of issues that I feel bad for parents. Parents are having to wait for buses long times. When we're short drivers, we double up routes. And so a bus driver will drive his or her first route and drop the kids off at school, circle back and do another route to pick up the second route of kids because we don't have a bus driver or a bus going to there. And so it consequently makes the second routes late. In some cases, parents are having difficulty getting to work on time and explaining to their bosses why they're getting there late. It's that's one of the problems. Lisa Nuss solved another problem. We had some kids going from Whiteley to Plum Grove for math, and because of the lack of bus drivers, it was sometimes they were getting there and missing a big chunk of their day at Whiteley because of the time frame necessary to juggle bus routes. Lisa has come up with a teacher to go to Whiteley and teach that out-of-level math class at Whiteley, and so those kids will not be missing those. But we are going to continue to try to address this problem of shortage of bus drivers. One of the things we're looking at right now is using some of our current employees that don't have the CDL or the bus driver license, our head custodians, our maintenance workers. We're going to try to get them trained, get them a license, so that in a pinch we can get them on the buses and they can drive kids to school and drive them home in a reasonable amount of time. It's not ideal because they all have full-time jobs doing things and responsibilities, but we're going to try to scramble and make do with the people we have and try to recruit more bus drivers, and we'll see how it goes. But it is a problem, and we don't feel good about it. We're going to continue to try to solve the problem and come up with some solutions before it gets too bad.
Yeah, quick question on that.
Yeah.
Is it possible to bring in like contract bus drivers?
Well, we do have the ability to contract with some private bus companies, and we used to do that to send our kids. You probably remember the kids that work for their parents work at Arlington Racetrack, and they go to a school down in Cicero, and when they're up here working, when their parents are working at the racetrack, we transport them to Cicero so that they can go to school there all year long. And we used to contract with First Student to do that, or some other group. They have a shortage of bus drivers as well, so they can't even provide that service to us now. So that was a long-winded answer to your question. The answer, they don't have bus drivers either. They have a shortage in those situations too. We transport our kids that are homeless via taxi,
right.
And we're having trouble with finding taxi drivers that will transport those kids that don't live in our community, that have to be traveling long distances to get here because their families are homeless. So it's a big problem, and we're doing the best we can. And Tom and his crew are working really hard trying to solve it. Lisa's working on solving the problem. But it's not going to be a quick solution, and we're going to ask people to be patient. So we're trying to find some solutions, but it's a bad situation. The last thing is just a quick discussion on school safety. This board is always focused on children's safety, and they've always tried to get us to examine our procedures and the things we're doing to make sure that the kids and staff members are as safe as possible when they're in our schools. Dr. Barbini regularly has a safety committee that's made up of police department representatives, fire department representatives, we've got, I think, even somebody from Homeland Security, we've got a student, we've got parents, and they meet on a regular basis to examine our procedures and what we're doing to make sure kids are safe. We, as you know, we have that model plan that other communities are using that was instituted several years ago, but we take school safety seriously because it's a priority for all of us, and you've made it a priority as well. And recently I've been talking to some chiefs of police, and I came up with an idea that I want to share with you tonight and just let you think about it for a month, and then next month we can talk about whether we really want to implement it or not. But police officers are eligible to retire at age 50, and it's pretty young to be retiring. And they all usually look for a job after that, particularly one that maybe where they get health insurance. There's also a federal law that allows police officers to carry a firearm in schools. Most people can't do it. Even if you've got a FOID card, you can't bring a firearm into school, but retired police officers can. So in thinking about school safety, I was talking to the chiefs of police, and I said, it seems to me we could improve our entrances, we could put special glass up, we could do a lot of things, but wouldn't the safest thing be to have a trained police officer in each one of our schools that had a firearm if something, God forbid, ever did happen? And they think that would be definitely the best way to go. They really do. Al Stokel, the chief of police in Palatine, was talking with me, and he told me a story that really, I think, drove it home for me. He just got back from vacation, was at Mariano's buying some food to restock the refrigerator, and he was in line checking out, and he saw some guys come in, and they grabbed a couple baskets each, and they started walking down the aisle. And he goes, so he goes out to his SUV, parks in the parking lot, and watches the door. Sure enough, one of the guys comes out with 2 baskets full of stuff, no bags, no receipt. He pulls his SUV over there, said, I don't suppose you have a receipt for that? And the guy said, no. Hands on the car, called the police over, they arrested him. He has a sensitivity to that stuff. I see somebody picking up a couple baskets, I go, that's odd, but I just walk away, I pay no attention. Police officers are trained to pick up on things that they know are unusual, so they're keenly aware if something odd is coming their way. So I would like to see us hire retired police officers in our current positions, our clerical positions, primarily in our offices, where they could perform the tasks that our clerical officers, clerical employees do now. They're union employees, they get paid union wages, but I'd also like to think about offering them a stipend for providing that extra safety in our schools by being able to carry a firearm and having that protection for our students, for our staff members of somebody in a building. And I'm talking with the chiefs of police to see what would that stipend need to be in order to entice these retired officers to take these jobs. And so I'm just throwing that out for you tonight to think about, and I'd like you to think about it for a month, and I'll come back and maybe I'll have a more firm proposal, and you can tell me whether you think it's something you'd like to endorse.
Thank you.
It's a clever idea. It definitely puts the beneficial aspect of having somebody trained that's paying a lot of attention to what's going on in a key position in each school.
Yeah.
Where they've got eyes on people walking in the door and can kind of self-analyze as people are coming in and leaving.
That's their expertise.
How does that differ from a school resource officer? I know at the high school level, our school resource officers are police officers that just happens to be where their post is. Instead of working, out of their police department, their post is in a school, and they do carry firearms.
Mm-hmm. So
At least in my district.
We have 2 SROs in our junior highs in Palatine, one here and one at Winston. And then we have one SRO that splits his time between Sandburg and Plum Grove. Just one, because Rolling Meadows doesn't have enough officers to provide us with one at each building. We pay both of those police departments for the services, but Rolling Meadows can't provide one. So we wouldn't probably have clericals in the 2 Palatine junior highs because we've already got an SRO. But we would hire clericals with retired police officers as clericals in our elementary buildings in Palatine. We probably could add one at Rolling Meadows that would help out so that one of those buildings is not covered, and then we could also hire them for Hoffman Estates elementaries and Rolling Meadows elementaries as well.
So if they are an SRO and they're an active police officer, are they carrying a weapon?
Yes, absolutely.
So this isn't really all that different other than active versus retired?
No, the police department couldn't provide us with active police officers at all these buildings. They just don't have the personnel to do that. And it's pretty expensive. This is a cheaper way to get somebody who's collecting a police pension, trained in the area, can carry a firearm to provide safety at all of our schools.
I think it's different also, Barb, I'm just trying to visualize in Plum Grove, for example, or in Fremd, the places I'm familiar with that have an SRO. That SRO is typically in an office. So they don't have a visual on everybody that's coming and going, whereas the clerk at Plum Grove, as an example, is sitting in an area where they've got, eyes out windows to the entranceway where people are buzzing to get in. They also have the cameras that are on those people at the entranceway. So it's somebody that's paying attention all the time as opposed to juggling also a job in the school.
I was more concerned with people reacting like, oh goodness, we can't have this in our schools, but we do have this in our schools, in areas where we already have SROs.
We do now.
Yeah.
And these retired police officers could have ankle holsters. I mean, they could have, their firearm could be hidden if we wanted it to be. I just think that these people are the ones that respond when there is an incident. If we got somebody there, how much more quickly would somebody be, taken care of if we had them in the buildings?
And so I think that the big difference is that the SRO officers, they're uniformed, they're out in the open, everybody knows what they're there for, and that's their specific duty is dealing with discipline issues and things of that nature, whereas this would be the individuals working as a clerical employee that just so happens to be also carrying a firearm in case anything comes up. So, which I think a concealed carry would be the way I'd like it to be done, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think if the board decided to do something like this, I imagine it would hit the press and be pretty exciting, and people would get the message out there that we are going to start having some of those individuals in our buildings, and so I think it would already be a deterrent. But however you wanted it to happen, I'd be willing to make that a reality. So I'll come back next month with a more firm proposal. If you have questions in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to me, and I might be able to get a police chief to come next meeting. That's it for my section.
Did you have any update on the Boundaries task force?
Oh, I forgot the Boundaries task force. How did I skip that? Yes, thanks. Quickly. We met last Thursday for our first meeting, and there were a number of people that were able to attend. Of the 37 that were invited to participate, we had a really good meeting. I think that it's going to be a lengthy process. It's a messy process to come up with that. June was a part of a boundary committee in District 21 in Wheeling many years ago, and she remembers that it got a lot of emotion going. So it's going to take a lot of work for this group to get going. But the plan for the group really is to send out a survey to the community to identify the community's priorities for examining boundaries. And so they will have the top 4 or 5 priorities from the community, and then they will use those to examine our current boundaries and what possible solutions they could come up with. So those priorities will drive solutions. They'll create some solutions after, I'm sure, a lengthy work period, and then they'll share that back with the community and get feedback from the community. And then they'll revise the plans based upon the feedback from the community. And then once they've got some, probably 3 or 4 plans that they feel good about, they would present them to the board. And the board then would be able to decide, do these make sense? Are these something we want to tackle? Is there enough support for them? The board may say, we don't think that any of them will work, but we're going to use the information to further look at the study, to look at the issue. Or the board may say, yeah, we really like one of them, and let's see if we can't implement them. I foresee us not being done with the process in time for the fall of 19. The earliest I think we could have any changes probably done is the fall of 20. So we're at least a good year and 3/4 out before we really would have any possibility of making changes to our boundaries. So, 3 or 4 plans they would bring to you after that process of getting priorities, sharing with the community, getting feedback, and I think that way we'd have a better sense of whether the community really wants us to proceed and which one they support.
Yeah, I mean, having gone through this sort of the last time with the Facilities Committee, I think it's helpful to have sort of the range of options, but rather than sort of an option A, option B, that sort of address all the priorities, I think it's very important to rank the priorities according to the feedback they get from the community, hopefully with a good amount of input. Come up with sort of the, minimally viable that addresses sort of the highest priorities up to, to get to a comprehensive solution that addresses a lot of the priorities generally would become a very big solution depending on how many priorities you're trying to juggle. So having sort of the 4 options or however many they come up with sort of scale from simplest and easiest to implement, least expensive to most comprehensive would be most beneficial, I'd say.
That makes perfect sense to me. The rest of the board kind of were there as well?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll mention that to the task force, and they did ask what the board's priorities were, and so that'll be helpful for them as they begin their work.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. May I have a motion for the reading and acceptance of minutes, please? I'll make a motion. May I have a motion?
Make a motion to accept the minutes of the following meetings: the September 12th, 2018 regular Board of Education meeting and executive session, September 12th, 2018 Board of Education Finance Committee meeting.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Well, one question is just that, the Finance Committee, a lot of us weren't there, obviously. I don't know if we, I'm sure we don't have enough people maybe on the board that can even vote on it, in terms of getting a quorum of people to be able to vote to accept those minutes.
The minutes for the meeting that you guys attended, but we did not.
Only 2 people attended, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So what,
They have to make
I think you can trust them to
I can
say
attest.
if they reflect appropriately what happened at this meeting, you can trust them and vote to approve them.
Okay, sure.
I hear what you're saying, Zubir, though. We can read the minutes, but we don't know that they're an accurate reflectance of.
Yeah,
I'll
the committee members.
I'll take board member Border and Wangs. Sorry. Okay, I'm ready to vote.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Iannarino.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Smolka.
Aye.
Shupai.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Motion carries. Board discussion and reports. EdRed Council legislation, Mr. Iannarino.
Well, there's elections coming up, and there's not a whole lot going on right now, so nothing really to report.
It's interesting how quiet the papers
They're
coming
all
from them are.
back campaigning, so they're not working in session.
Mrs. Kane, 155.
The only thing of note is very recently both Motorola and Northrop Grumman have each awarded District 15 $5,000 in grant funds that'll be used for, so far, 7 schools who have applied to set up first LEGO League clubs and compete in the competition in December, with this year's theme being Into Orbit. So the teams are very excited with their planning and organizing their members to build.
So will that be 2 in addition to those that already exist? Or is it the same funding?
Yes,
that-
7. Oh, The 7 is the number of teams.
Yes.
So you mean 5 existing, 2 new?
With 2 new. Okay.
And it's a total of the 10,000 from them, and then the 1-5 Foundation kicked in another 2,000 on top of that.
Great. Finance Committee, Mr. Board or Mr. Wong?
It's too hard to get minutes approved, so.
And there was
We
no...
haven't met since last month, so nothing to report.
But we did approve the minutes, so you guys are good until the next
We're
time.
official.
Equity Committee, Mr. Cobb, Mr. Smolka.
We haven't met either since last week. I know we had a big presentation last month, and we'll be following up with them shortly.
Great. Review of Illinois Association of School Boards 2018 Resolutions Committee Report. Dr. Thompson?
So each year, the Illinois Association of School Boards at its annual convention holds a resolution committee hearing. And this board has, in the past, had one member represent them at that delegation. And Zubair's done it for a couple years now, I think, haven't you?
Yeah, 3 years.
3 years, I'm sorry. And so I think tonight, if you could select a person that's going to be at the school board conference in November to represent you at that delegation. And then what has happened in the past is we look at the recommended resolutions, the revisions and things that they have, and we give, as a group, feedback to whoever is that representative, and then they vote that way at the particular event, Saturday morning. So I guess what I would recommend is selecting the person tonight, and then if you could look at the resolutions and get that person feedback on whether you agree with the resolution committee's recommendations or not, he or she could then represent you at that meeting.
Would anybody like to volunteer?
I don't mind doing it. It's fun. You get to meet a lot of people from all around the state, so I can do it.
Would you like to keep it, Zubair? If you'd like to keep it, does anybody have an issue with that?
I'm saying, see, as a very senior board member, I like to give people opportunities to really, spread their wings out there and get the experience. But not seeing any volunteers, I have no problem with doing that.
4th time's a charm.
Anybody want to spread their wings, or maybe next year? Are you sure, Anthony?
I'm sure.
You got this look on your face like it's a maybe.
I'm waiting for my honorary doctorate, but.
All right. We will, is everybody good with Zubair covering this for one more year? All right. Thank you, Zubair. And Superintendent's Communication Committee?
Nothing to report.
Nothing. But did the meeting August 28th not happen, or?
We met in September and we shared the minutes of that meeting last month.
It's October, isn't it? All right, so I'm missing that.
I'm flags.
Thank you very much.
Scott was like, did we meet? When was that?
Doesn't feel like October. We will now open our meeting for public comment. Please remember that this is not a dialogue between you and the board. If you have a specific issue which requires a response, Superintendent Thompson will get back to you. Please state your name and identify any group that you represent, as well as keeping your comments to 5 minutes or less. If someone previously has articulated something with which you agree, please state that you agree rather than revisiting the entire comment. And finally, avoid any comments specific to any person, student, staff member, respecting that person's right to privacy. Mr. Herb Rodriguez.
Mr. Rodriguez, if you have a seat at one of these chairs here and speak into the microphone, thank you.
Dr. Thompson stole some of my thunder in terms of what we're speaking. My name is Herb Rodriguez. I've been a police officer in Palatine for 27 years. Just retired, just turned 50. I retired to take a position at a Roselle school in security. I've been talking to some of the parents about security for our schools, and they ask me questions and speak to them, excuse me, about physical security of the building in terms of how can that be improved. Also personnel, how can that improve security for the building? And they said that they were concerned a little bit with spending money and allocating money towards the Park Place project when that money maybe could be spent towards improving security at our schools. I also have a cute little 7-year-old daughter who goes to Lincoln, so I have a vested interest. But there's a couple points that I wanted to make in terms of physical security. The entrances, as you spoke before. I'd like to see the ability for the public to enter the building directly into the office. That's the number one thing that I would have. In terms of the security at the schools, locking down the exit doors and everything is fantastic. District 15 is second to none when it comes to lockdown drills. I've been involved in a lot of those at this school and other schools in Palatine. But I'd like to see the physical security just improved a bit. In terms of when someone enters a school, the first thing that you need to do is have a visual, obviously, before you let them into school. But a lot of times they want to know, hey, what does this person want? So they're going to buzz them in just to have that conversation. You're not going to have that conversation through that barrier. So at most of the schools, they buzz the individual in and they have access to the school at that time. I'd just like to see it configured so that they enter directly into the office. They can be run through the Raptor program or however the schools have it for their sex offenders, things of that nature. Find out what they wanted and take it from there. That would just improve the security. I also investigated a case last year at Sanborn where a student was at recess and a man came up to the group of kids. And now the student said that the man fumbled through his pocket and he had a pistol. We never found that. We never found that the students were in danger at any point. But it did get me thinking as to how close people can get to our kids when they're at recess. I have concerns with that, especially a lot of the properties that butt up to public lots, other businesses, or sidewalks and streets. People can just kind of meander onto the school property when kids are out there at recess. Now, we do have a good number of support staff that are out there protecting the kids, watching the kids, keeping an eye on kids. But I just think if we had perhaps some boundaries in terms of a decorative fence, just some barrier that it's not going to stop a determined attacker. But what we'll do is it'll buy a little bit of time. And these kids, like I said, unfortunately, that's education in 2018. They're pretty well versed in this. They can get into school and get locked down in a hurry. And just having a fence would also have a dual purpose in keeping people from just kind of meandering onto that property. When I investigated that case at Sanborn, it disturbed me a little bit that a stranger that we knew nothing about, when the kids are in school, they're safe, but when they're at recess, this guy can approach these kids. Maybe not even have talk to them or anything, but can have actual physical contact because he's only 5-10 feet away from a group of students. So in speaking to some of the parents, I said that I'd come here and talk about that. Not knowing that you were going to speak as well about hiring police officers, and I could speak to that as well. And please, if you need me as a resource, I'm always available. But yeah, police officers. I just turned 50. That's when I retired. Another one of the guys on my shift did the same thing. He went to the same school that I'm at. It's great that we have this pension, but we definitely need the health insurance. And that's what's the kind of the anchor, and that's what the schools can offer. So that's why it's very attractive. Summers off doesn't hurt either. So, yeah. So that's something that we do. There are some obstacles towards police officers carrying at schools. The Federal Safe Schools Act also kind of it can be circumvented in certain ways, but it prevents. You have to be an on-duty police officer in your jurisdiction. So even though this was my beat. I just retired a couple months ago. This was my beat, and I worked in Lincoln School. Yeah. So I had Mondays and Tuesdays off and would take my daughter there. On Wednesdays, if there was something that happened, I was the guy who got called to go there. On Mondays and Tuesdays, I couldn't carry my gun to go drop my daughter off. So there are some sticky laws that you have to get around. But other than that, I think it's a fantastic idea. And I just wanted to bring that up about the allocation of funds for the schools now, making them a little bit more secure as opposed to spending on stuff like the Park Place project. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good suggestions.
Thanks.
I have a question on that with the entry. Is it possible, it doesn't have to be tonight, but to get a list of schools that have entries that allow entrance into the office and then through versus those that lead directly into the school?
Sure. We can get that to you.
I was thinking about it last Friday when we were talking to, but the,
Quick question too. So police officers in Palatine, are they in IMRF?
No.
Okay,
They have their
that's
own
good.
pension system.
That's good, because I was going to say, I think, isn't there a rule about how many hours somebody could work after they retire? Okay.
But there are some of the schools that do have issues with some officers from counties with the same thing,
Yeah.
So with regards to the laws about carrying weapons in schools, do we know what the scope of that is? It sounds like he's saying there's some issues and...
Yeah, the chiefs of police that I've talked to have said it's a possibility. Now, I don't know what you need to do to make it a possibility. I haven't investigated that much. I just brought it to you tonight.
Okay, so do we need to talk then to our legal team to find out exactly what are the scope of laws, whether it be federal, state laws, local laws, and what, how they all overlap or don't overlap, and how you can actually work with those laws to provide this kind of a service for our kids?
Absolutely, we have to do that.
Okay, so you're going to contact the...
Well, I'm going to wait until you give me the go-ahead, and then I'll come back with all the specifics. I thought
That just seems like a huge issue if there are legal...
No, okay, I'll look into it. I'll make if it's too big, then you shouldn't exert any mental energy on it.
Well, I'm just looking to move along a little faster than we think about it, and it's like, you know what, guess what?
I will
have to pass a law down in Springfield or in Washington, D.C. before we can do anything.
I'll look into it.
Yeah.
so in essence, you will look into it and present all of your findings next time, and then we can vote on it.
Yeah, okay.
We was hoping to buy another month, but...
Ain't gonna happen.
That works out all right. Teresa Grenick. Hello, Teresa. We're waiting quietly.
Dr. Thompson, President Shupai, members of the board, good evening. Very much appreciate the time that both Dr. Thompson and President Shupai took from their schedules to meet last week to address a number of concerns that I had and to clarify a few issues that were concerning to me. Of all that were discussed, there is, however, a remaining issue that I am most unsettled with, as well as our other parents who had asked about the outcome of our meeting. And so because of that, I would like to place it in the hands of the board. And it's in regards to conversation currently taking place over student safety. I very much respect that this is a topic that the superintendent's office, as well as the Board of Education, are very well versed in. And I do recognize that all of the staff involved with all of our students have it on their mind at every waking moment of their day. I am not suggesting anything to the contrary. And I do also appreciate the new conversation being brought about, thinking outside of the box in regards to our students' safety. In the meantime, what I ask the board is that while you consider how to best allocate the spending of our district's reserve funds, be it on Park Place, additional classrooms, technology, special services, PAs we're short on, continuing with the great work that's been done on the life safety issues for our buildings, or potentially not spending it at all, that we do, again, consider utilizing those same funds to secure the front entrances to our already existing school buildings. There's obviously, again, no way to completely prevent the bad guys from getting in. It would be an unrealistic expectation to any of us or to any of our buildings. However, the simple deterrent of a secure entrance should give us all pause for thought and consideration to that funding. I recognize that there is much on your plates to digest over the next several months. And I imagine that your roles at times might be perceived to be a thankless job. However, from my perspective, the public chatter and concern, as well as support to these issues, really show recognition of the action and of the forward movement that is taking place within our district, and that there are people like myself who do care about those outcomes and want to support you in those actions. So I just want to thank you for your consideration in the potential of spending some of our reserve fund money to secure the main entrances to our schools, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks, Teresa. Jennifer Figarelli. Hey there.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson, President Shupai, members of the board. I, too, actually met last week with both Dr. Thompson and President Shupai with Teresa. We went together. Both of us actually, though, I think, having different concerns. So I thought it best that I just bring them tonight forward to all of you, just as maybe more informational and things you can keep in mind while you're moving forward with this Park Place decision. So in June, when you had put the 2 slides up about the option to do Park Place and or redevelop the current buildings in District 15, I had wondered if in that cost that was shown, had you considered the cost of teacher salaries, curriculum, insurance, transportation, and I know now that it wasn't included in there. And I know that transportation is going to be hard for you to determine because you wouldn't know yet who's attending that school. And I know you have a boundary committee who's working on trying to figure out what to do in the district, so there's a lot of moving parts. But from my perspective and looking at the district budget and just thinking about where we might be depending on what happens with state funding and possible pension cost shifts and all of the things that I'm sure you all think about all of the time. Taking out that reserve money is very frightening for me. And I wonder how long it would really take to rebuild those reserves. Now, I know there'll be a 5-year projection at November's meeting, but I don't think in that 5-year projection you're going to have that full-day kindergarten option showing. And I think for purposes of us and the public and stakeholders and all of this, it would be nice to see what will happen in a 5-year projection within the district should we go with that option. Whether the option was full-day kindergarten or it's all important. Everything Teresa said, everything that that Herb said, everything that everybody said is important. But where does that take us in 5 years? And of course, I have a personal vested interest in it because I have a daughter who's in kindergarten at Lincoln, and I want to ensure that 6 years from now, she's still receiving the phenomenal programming that my 4th grader is receiving at Lincoln. And I would hate to see any of those programs cut. It doesn't mean I want children not to be safe. It doesn't mean that I don't think kids should get full-day kindergarten. But I think it's just we're in such a difficult climate right now. We know that the state is statutorily required to fund education, but we also know that in the evidence-based model, there's no number that states what they have to provide to fund that education. We don't know what that will do to our funds. We're property tax high out here in District 15. So many families are capped with their property taxes. If we don't continue to receive the state funding, our only option would be to go out for referendum, and will that happen? And if that doesn't happen, then what happens? And I just feel, and I had said this actually when I came the first time to testify about the soft lockdown, that for me, and I'm one person in your district, but seeing it makes me understand it better, which will make me ask all of you less questions. So if there's a projected budget that I can look at, that I can see what's going to happen or what the options will be, then I'm less, not that I don't trust the decision that any of you would make, but I also know that I'm a really important stakeholder in this community, as is everybody else. And I would just like to know that we're working together. And in June, when the vote went on moving forward, I know that you can back out of this Park Place option, but when it was what I felt so quickly decided in one meeting, and then from June, I know it's summer, but from June until now, not having seen any kind of a town hall or an opportunity for us as parents, or even, I mean, I have family in the district who doesn't have kids, or family in Palatine who doesn't have kids in the district, but they are stakeholders to my children's education, and going forward, I will be for someone else. But we've not been given that forum, and I think without that forum, that's why you end up having me here tonight. So overall, those are my concerns, and I trust that you all know those already, because you wouldn't be sitting on the board if you didn't, but I also don't think I'd be doing my due diligence if I didn't bring them forward and tell you that you all have those concerns, and so do so many other people in the community. So if there's just something that you could do to put us all at ease and let us know that this is what the projected funding is going to be, I think it would be much easier. So thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer, and we love having you here, so feel free to come back anytime. We will have some data once we figure out where we're going with this, and if it's going to move forward to decision-making, we will, of course, have some numbers that Mike will provide.
Mike, at the Finance Committee, did provide 4 scenarios for the 5-year projection. I've asked him to bring those next meeting to you as well. So you'll have varying 5-year projections next month based upon different scenarios. So one of those will be the purchase of that building and the staffing of it. So
Perfect. All right. Action items. Item 18, 1020, the personnel report. May I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the October 3rd, 2018 personnel report, including the following recommendations. Recommendation for termination of Becky Gunger, and recommendation for termination of Jessica Mercado as presented.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
and Reno.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 18, 1021. Motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the First Amendment to the real estate purchase agreement dated June 6, 2018, between the Board of Education of Community Consolidated School District Number 15 and JT Park Place LLC as presented.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Kane,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
and Reno.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 18, 1022. Motion, please?
I make a motion to award the contract for the custodial cleaning supplies bid 19-005 to the following 6 companies and the amounts listed. Number 1, All American Poly, Piscataway, New Jersey, $7,270. Number 2, Bolter Company, Chicago, Illinois, $19,052.20. Number 3, Central Poly Bag Corporation, Chicago, Illinois, $7,350. Number 4, Chemcraft, Linden, New Jersey, $18,955.50. Number 5, Supply Works in Lombard, Illinois, for $181,333.10. And number 6, Warehouse Direct from Des Plaines, Illinois, $54,342.20, for a total expenditure of $288,303 as recommended. Recommendations are based on low bid vendors meeting bid specifications.
Second, please.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
and Reno.
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 18, 1023. Motion, please?
Make a motion to award the contract for the rock salt and triple melt bid 19-006 to Conserve FS from Wakanda, Illinois, in the amount of $52,760 as recommended.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
and Reno.
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 18, 1030, the consent calendar. Would anyone like to remove anything from the consent calendar? May I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second.
Perfect. Roll call, please.
Shupai?
Aye.
Vaughn?
Aye.
Enrino?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
King?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Smolka?
Aye.
Motion carries. Dr. Thompson, correspondence?
There were no requests and no responses under the Freedom of Information Act during the period of September 6th to September 26th.
Wow.
Gina and I were talking, it hasn't been years since that's happened. And we received one contribution from a developer from the city of Rolling Meadows. The check was in the amount of $1,083.
Excellent. All right. All for adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.